Would you like to win and achieve success at what you do? Welcome to the Winner's Ways podcast, where we create winners every day. And now, your host, the author of Winner's Ways book and life coach, Bola Alabi.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Winner's Ways podcast. And guys, today we have a special guest. We have Joe Disanto on the show with us today. Joe is the owner of Play Louder. He's an authority blogger and he's a member of the Forbes Finance Council. I'm going to let Joe, I'll bring him in shortly so he can introduce himself to you guys so you can know him better. You are going to be thrilled by what we are going to be talking about today because Joe and I, we are going to talk about budgeting, personal finance planning, and we'll talk about retirement. And for those of you that want to start a business, Joe is going to share some insights with us as well. Hey, Joe, what's up, man?
Hey, Bola, how are you, man? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So, it's good to have you on the show with us today. And as I always like to do, I want my guests, to tell my audience about themselves. So, if you don't mind, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, Joe Disanto, as you mentioned. So these days, I am both a blogger, I guess, and a fractional CFO or business consultant. So, but previous to what I've been doing in the last 3 years, I owned some businesses in Los Angeles, production and post-production businesses, which I started with my partners at the time back in 2006. So I did that for about 12 years. And that was the main chunk of my career, I guess, really happened in Los Angeles. I was in LA for about 20 years and then essentially left LA really, not because things weren't going good or I didn't enjoy it, but my wife and I finally had a child. And in the first 3 years of that, we kind of realized that children take a lot of time, as it turns out. Yeah, I didn't know that.
That's very right.
It was, I guess. But so in the first few years, we were doing our normal thing and the businesses and everything. And it just, we were just like really having a hard time both like doing the parenting well, enjoying it, and also like meeting the demands of the business and all that. So, I mean, plenty of people do that and it's not a problem, but we luckily, because of our, I like to say financial prudency, but my passion for personal finance and investing and things like that, we had really worked hard to prepare for our future, and it went well, and it basically afforded us the opportunity to kind of restructure our life a little bit, work less, kind of enter like into a semi-retired state so that we could have more family time and live a less stressful life with our son while he was young. And, part of accomplishing that goal was doing what I call retreating to cheaper ground. We ended up leaving Los Angeles and moved to a less expensive town. We live in Florida now. And lowered our overhead and essentially put to work some of the, I guess you would say, approaches of the FIRE movement or financial independence, retire early movement, and entered into this sort of semi-retired state, that I call it, and all of that. Being able to do that really was accumulation of being financially prudent, or really putting some thought throughout my life to personal finance and running the business of me, or the business of my wife and I, like our personal financial life, but also being entrepreneurial, owning a business and having that component. And then the third component, or pillar, as I like to say, my 3 pillars to success, the third one being really focusing on investing and understanding both how to invest, why you invest, and like what actual, goals and results you need from your investing in order to achieve your long-term financial goals.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So
did that make sense? I don't know if that made sense, but
okay, no. I like that. When you start breaking stuff down into maybe steps or pillar, as you used, I always get thrilled about that. So I know you mentioned financial planning. You said invest. What are the 3 pillars? Let's start from there. Maybe.
Yeah. So the 3 pillars to success, as I like to call them. And by the way, I should say that, on my website and as a blogger, what I'm doing is being out there to help educate people on these 3 pillars and what's involved, and basically help people or coach people to make better financial choices and create a system for themselves so that they can reach their goals. And part of what I teach is this kind of 3-pillar approach. And the 3 pillars are financial prudency, or the personal finance pillar, which is basically running the business of you, I like to call it, where you actually treat your personal finances like a business. You look at your income and your expenses and your net income, or AKA your savings. You track your finances in computer software, and not just for the point of tracking, but so you can look at the results of how you're doing and actually do analysis, on your finances, and then see how you're performing versus your goals, which essentially would be your budget. So all those things that you would do for a business and like business finances, you kind of apply to your personal life. And because I owned a business and I like being entrepreneurial, that's the analogy that works for me. But the second pillar is being entrepreneurial or business minded. And basically what that means is like potentially trying to start a business, number one. If you can't do that, because not every career kind of lends itself to easily starting a business in the career, maybe you try to be more entrepreneurial in your work, as with your employer, meaning like really making yourself indispensable at your work, such that the day you come in to get your big raise that you're going to ask for, and you tell your employer, well, if I can't get the money I need, I'm going to have to leave. They're so scared to lose you that they will just give you what you want. Like you have to make yourself that indispensable. And I look at that as being entrepreneurial in your job. Like your employer is your one client, you're still the business of you, and you really have to make that client love you and want to bring you more work, essentially. But beyond that, if you're not going to start an actual business that's your full-time endeavor, you could also start a side business, or AKA a side hustle, as the kids like to call it today. And not only make more income, but the benefits of starting a business are multifold. And one of them is that you get to get more preferential tax treatment as a business owner. In America, you can deduct so many more things. You can essentially, get more money out of the money you're making if you're making it as a business, because of the way you can take deductions and a variety of other, tax related things related to being a business owner. So you want to kind of get yourself into some version of business ownership. So one, of course, you can make that extra money, but two, you can actually even get better, tax treatment, essentially, when you go do your tax return. And then the third pillar is investing and being investing focused. And that's really important because, some people find investing fun like me, and it's like a hobby, and I would kind of play with it and learn about it anyway because I like it. But investing is really critical to your long-term personal financial success, because it's very unlikely you're going to just save enough money to retire. You're going to get to your retirement, financial destination through the combination of savings and investing those savings so that they grow and compound with you, along your working years. And you actually need to get a pretty good return on those investments in order for the system to work pretty well for you, to the tune of 7 to 10% compound annual return at least. Hopefully you want to best that. And if you don't understand investing, number one, on how to do it, what's a good return, but really even why you need to get those returns and what those returns need to be, you're kind of in the dark there, So learning how to invest and understanding the importance it's playing in your financial planning is really critical. And usually investing is, for most people, are going to end up being one of two things. It's going to be market investing, like stock market, bond market, the basic public markets as they're called, or what I call personally owned real estate. I always liked real estate. That was kind of where I focused most of my investing capital, at least in my more full-time working years. These days, I'm actually adjusting my asset allocation because of my new kind of semi-retired state. I have slightly different goals with the investing. So I give a lot of advice on my website about real estate investing in particular, but also market investing as well. So that's a lot to kind of take in, especially for someone that's like not into this stuff, I realize. But those three things working together are really important. It's like figure out how to make more money, the business part, to be entrepreneurial. Figure out how to track that money and make sure that you actually have a net income or a savings. Then figure out how to invest that savings so that your money's growing while you're still, at your day job, essentially.
So, Joe, thank you very much for that. That's packed.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I think you shared a lot of information.
And my wife does tell me that sometimes I need to make it more entertaining. So, I admit that.
Okay, so my job is to break it down, and really make it simpler so that my audience will understand. And you did a fantastic job with everything you explained, so I liked it. And I think it's simple. You mentioned the three pillars. The first is, of course, the personal finance planning, making sure that you have a net positive income, positive cash flow every month, right? Mm-hmm. You also talked about having that entrepreneurial mindset, and which I think is core. And the reason why I really want to hone in on that is that many people have this misconception that, except if I want to start a business, except if I own a business or create something entirely new, they don't see themselves as entrepreneur. But I like the way you put it, that even if you are working, you should see yourself as an entrepreneur. Because if you start thinking like an entrepreneur, your company, they will put more value on you. You understand how the business operates. You'll be able to contribute positively to the business. So that's important. And you also talk about investing. Now, no one, maybe I shouldn't say no one, it's not going to be easy to just save money, maybe pack it under your pillow for 20, 30 years and expect it to grow, right? You said we should now find a way of investing and try to, compound it, maybe 7 to 8% at least every year. Then after so many years, you'll be able to, have some sizable nest eggs. So that's very, very important. Now, the way I want to approach this is this. You talk about personal finance, you talk about business. What is the role of budget in all this? And if after telling us the role, I want you to, if you know of any budgeting app out there, some people use Excel, some use Mint. Mm-hmm. Anyone that you want to recommend to the audience, please.
Yeah. Well, budgeting to me, again, I'm going to keep making an analogy of your personal financial life, running it like a business, right? And your personal budget is like an operating budget for a business, right? So when you have a business, and I owned couple businesses, pretty sizable, about 35 employees, I think, on average. We had an operating budget, right? So every year we'd be like, okay, like roughly we expect to make this much money. Roughly we expect to spend this much money. This is how much net profit we're going to roughly make. And this is our basic roadmap for the year. We, of course, want to make more money at all costs and potentially spend less money, but not necessarily just flat spend less money. Maybe we spend less percentage per income, right?
Right.
So that we end up with a better net profit, and that's like what the owners take home for their ultimate pay. So a personal budget is kind of the same thing. And I look at everything in an entrepreneurial light, you know what I mean? So, and I think to me that makes it exciting, because when you're doing your personal budget, you're like, all right, I'm going to map out, how the business is going to do this year. I'm going to set my goals, both from an income perspective, a spending perspective, and a net profit or savings perspective. And that's what the personal budget is. You kind of, and I just honestly do it in a spreadsheet. And it's like, this is my income I expect to make this year. Here, if I, maybe I can make more income if I do like a side hustle, this or that. What if I go for a raise, whatever? This is what I expect to spend this year. And at the end of all that, this is what I expect to save. And, that's obviously the most critical thing. Now, the reason I say just do a budget and a spreadsheet is because I don't think you need an app or whatever to do a budget. The budgeting thing is like a roadmap, but it's like kind of just one, kind of small step. And honestly, it doesn't even take that much time. What's really important, both in business and in personal, finances, is you have a budget, but throughout the year that you're actually sticking to the budget. That's really the most critical thing. And the only way you can know that is if you actually track your income and expenses using a program. So you don't need a budgeting program so much as you need a program to track your income and expenses like throughout the year. I use Quicken for that, and I'm not paid to say that. I've just been using Quicken like for 25 years. And I think it's the best because I think it's the one that can grow with you the most throughout your life. But there's, tons of them. There's Mint, there's Countabout, there's YNAB,
yeah,
a bunch.
Yeah.
But I will say that I don't think anyone should track their income and expenses on a notebook or in a spreadsheet or anything like that. Like, even if your life is simple, like I would actually mentor a lot of my like employees and stuff, and I would always say to them, you got to get started using Quicken. Like, you're not serious if you're not tracking your finances, and they would say, well, I only have I got a credit card, I got my car loan, I got my student loans. I don't have that much. Do I really need to use a program for that? And I'm like,
yes.
No, but this is when it's going to be really easy for you to start. Like, this is the time to get in the habit of it because it's so easy. Like, it won't take you any time at all. And once you get in the habit, as you grow in your life and you add real estate and you add investing and you're saving more and you've got things going on and maybe you start a business, you're going to be in a great habit to add those things into your tracking, and it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be overwhelming. So it's no excuse that you don't have a lot going on. And a lot of people will just be like, I liken it to exercise. I mean, like, I know that it's work and what have you, but like, we all know exercise is work, right? But if you don't exercise, what happens? You get fat and you very likely will die sooner than you would have otherwise. That's just the hard truth. And if you're willing to accept that, that's fine. And the great irony when I say this is that I hate exercising and I will probably die early because of it. So I totally get a lot of people not wanting to do it, but that's what happens when you don't track your finances. It's like not exercising. So you end up saving less, spending more, probably making less, and you invest less. And basically your overall financial health just suffers because you don't do the work, right? And that's what the tracking is. And I'll add a little bit to this, in that when you do the budget that you mentioned originally, like, you really can't do an accurate budget unless you've done some tracking. Like, you really have to know, like, how much is my life? Does it really cost me? Like if you just put arbitrary numbers on a page, that's your budget, and you don't know that you can actually stick to that and it's practical and whatever, it's kind of pointless. So you can't, in my opinion, actually do a budget until you've done a little bit of tracking of your finances, at least for a month or two. And you see, like, just regularly over a couple month period, what did I spend on groceries? What did I spend on this? What did I spend on that? What did I spend on this? Then you can pump that into a budget and be like, okay, I see now I spent X number of dollars on groceries. I could do better, maybe if I try. So I think I can trim that. Or I see that I spent $500 eating out last month. Like that was a lot. Like I'm going to put $400 in my budget and I'm going to like work to make sure that I achieve that. But if you just kind of throw arbitrary numbers in a budget and then you don't even track your income and expenses in a computer, so you have no idea if you've met the budget, the whole budgeting thing is kind of a waste,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will make this analogy too, in thinking about the value of doing a budget and tracking your income and expenses as a person. Like, imagine if you were going to like maybe invest in a company, right? And you're talking to someone and they're trying to get you to give them some money for their company. And you said to them, or, okay, well, like, I don't know, tell me like, how much revenue did you make last year? What were your expenses? What was, your cost of goods sold? Like how much did your product cost to make? What was your margin on it? Give me some basics. And they were like, well, we don't really track any of the finances because it's just as boring, So like, I don't know, but I can tell you that you are with a winner. You would be like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, how do you know if you're a winner if you don't pay attention to your finances? Well, that very same thing is completely true for your personal life too. If you don't track it and you don't know, then, you're just leaving it up to chance as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want to invest in that kind of company. I don't invest in a company that leaves it up to chance. Yeah. Call me crazy.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. And I agree with the analogy that you made with, exercise and budgeting. I wrote an article, I think, some times back that I call Financial Fitness Checkup. It's all about all these budgeting, what comes in, what goes out, and how to, cut down your budget. So I completely...
your budget's basically like your workout routine that you bring on the piece of paper to the gym, and you're like, all right, I got to do like 3 sets of 10 of these and whatever. That's your budget. But if you don't actually go to the gym, it doesn't do anything for you.
You don't understand. So I saw that you've done a couple of real estate deal. I don't know if you've done, you've done some residential, and I see that you did commercial. I've done some residential real estate deal myself. But are there different set of skill sets that are required for these two different types of real estate investing, or are they just the same thing?
Well, yes and no. I mean, ultimately, big picture, it's kind of a similar thing in that depending what you're doing, but in my case, it's like you're looking for a place that you can add value to, like, so hope. With residential, you might be looking for something you can fix up and rent out. With commercial, if you want to make the most of the investment, often you want to do a value add or add value. So in our case, we looked for pretty properties in rough shape, or they were essentially warehouses that we converted into office. So we bought them, we fixed them up, we changed their use, from office to commercial and or creative office space. I mean, from warehouse to creative office, and that added value. But, at the end of the day, it's like, you're looking for property that you can improve, eventually rent, make money on the rental cash flow, sell, make a profit, add value. Where commercial is different is that doing that, doing the improvements and especially if you're going to do a change of use, there's just a lot more ins and outs with like permitting in the city and there's just a lot more requirements on commercial that you just don't see in residential. Particularly like one basic example is an environmental inspection. You don't have to do that when you buy a residential property. When you buy a commercial building, you got to do that, and that can open up a can of worms. When you do a change of use, with a commercial property, at least in Los Angeles, like you have to meet parking considerations. You have to meet, traffic considerations. You have to do even sometimes special studies in order to show that what those issues are going to be for your new building, so it's just more stuff you got to do and know about. So they're not the same in that sense, but the big picture approach is basically the same. You make money through positive cash flow and long-term appreciation and amortization.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, it's all about, the cash flow that you are going to be getting from this property. So that's very important. I'm an engineer by background, and I saw that you had this reverse retirement engineering, where you compare early retirement, and I think these are the fire folks, versus traditional retirement. What do you mean by that reverse retirement engineering? What does that really entail?
Well, it's not necessarily something different than quote unquote regular retirement, but I call it reverse engineer your retirement, meaning a lot of people just like, we're all on our road to retirement. I don't care what age you are, when you think you're going to retire. Some people are like, I'm going to work forever, whatever you think, retirement is coming for you. That's just a fact. Like either you're going to get tired and you're going to want to stop working, or you're going to get so old that people will tell you can't come to work anymore. They're not interested in your services, except for maybe at the Home Depot, which is where a lot of people, I think, work who didn't prepare for retirement and they need to work in their retirement. Yeah. Or they might just be lonely because it gets boring, Right. But anyway, most people are kind of on this journey, but they've not prepared for it. Like they don't know where they're headed. They don't know how they're getting there. They just think, I'm told I need to save 5% of my money, between 5% and 15% of my money, if I can, put it in a 401k, invest it in the market, quote unquote, and it's going to work out. That's it. And unfortunately, it's not that simple. That's leaving it quite up to chance, really. Mm-hmm. And so what I say is, and a lot of fire people, kind of say is, let's get more serious about this, number one. And we reverse engineer it in the sense that we look at what our retirement is going to be or what we want it to be. We say to ourselves, how much is that going to cost me? Okay. On an annual basis. Based on that, how much money do I actually need to save in order to have my dream become a reality? Mm-hmm. And then how much money do I need to totally save, collectively save? And then once I know that number, how much money do I need to save every year for how many years, and how much return on investment does that savings need to get in order to get me from where I am today to where I need to be 30 years from now in terms of a nest egg. So that's what I mean by reverse engineering. You start at the end and then you kind of figure out, okay, what's the roadmap going to be to get me there? I make my destination, I decide what my destination is, and then I create the roadmap in order to get there. And so I have a course called the Financial Independence Roadmap. And essentially in that is I explain to you exactly how you do all that. And I even provide my spreadsheets that I use to do it for myself, where we map out 30 years of savings and a certain percentage of return and figure out what if I'm going to send my kids to college. I got to add that in there, all the ins and outs and what have yous. I basically give you these spreadsheets so that you don't have to figure all that out. You just can look at them, pump in the numbers, and then go, okay, I get it now. I see what I need to do. And then you go, wow, I really need to start saving way more money than I'm currently saving. It's usually what ends up happening at the end of that. Right. I think some people, frankly, it can be a little, that just the results of that can be just a little disheartening sometimes. But I look at it as like, it should be motivational. Like some people are like, I'm doing great. It actually turned out that I'm making enough and I'm saving enough. And now I know, and that's great. And then other people are like, okay, not only do I need to save more, but in order to save more, I need to make more.
Make more, yeah.
And that obviously is not an easy fix, but therein lies the entrepreneurialism. Therein lies making yourself indispensable at work, being proactive about getting raises. I mean, honestly, I'm probably hired, over 100 people over the course of my business ownership, and had many of meeting, and about raises and this and that. And there are some people that ask for raises every year, and there are some people that never ask for a raise, and they will only, they'll take what you'll give them, essentially. I frankly tried to value our team, and if people didn't ask for a raise in a long enough period of time, I'd be like, all right, dude, you need a raise. We're gonna give you a raise. But at the same time, I felt like some people that were asking every year, I didn't always want to give it to them, and I didn't necessarily even think they deserved it. But they were the squeaky wheel, and they would get raises before other people that maybe even worked harder or whatever. Now, is that fair or whatever? No, but like that's the way life really works in reality. So, you gotta be your own advocate at your job. But when you go in to be your advocate and ask for a 20% raise or a 30% raise, you got to go in there knowing that you are like the best employee. Like you are indispensable. Like you don't, you're not just what they call water cooler whiners or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you are like, if I tell them I'm going to leave, they're going to be scared, and they're going to really think about giving me what I want.
Right.
And they're going to think, what if they go to the competitor? Wow, now that person's going to have this great employee, and then I got to find a replacement, blah, blah, blah. So, you have to prepare for that by doing an awesome job. I always worked in relatively small business settings, like companies with 5 to 50 people. And I found opportunities to do extra things that could make me stand out. Now, in a giant organization of 30,000 people or something like that, I don't always know what that extra, effort would look like, and where those opportunities are. But again, you got to be your own advocate, and making sure you identify the opportunities to allow you to shine and set yourself up for success, and then be proactive when you go in and ask for those raises every year,
Good. So, Joe, you rightly said is that there are quite a number of people out there that are somehow in the dark. They do not have the knowledge, the skills to, plan their money. They don't often think about the retirement thing we are discussing right now. And for people like that, they want to lean on, maybe most of them, they may not even have enough resource to maybe hire a wealth manager. And as such, they depend on, people like you and I talking about money. And for them, I want them to know specifically what you do, because they are going to be listening to this episode, and they want to reach out to you and learn from you and connect with you. How does that process work if they want to connect with you, to learn from you, maybe join one of your or courses and all
I always say to people, in general, like managing your finances is so important that either you really got to take it seriously and do it, or it's so important that you could consider paying someone to do it for you, or somewhere in between. You could just pay someone to give you a hand every now and then. Or you can spend more time of your own and go to websites and read and whatever. So with my website, you can come to my website, and I have tons of free information, and everything that I would probably tell you if you paid me in a course, or even took one of my courses, you probably could gather eventually from just reading like every article on my website. Maybe not even all of them, maybe like about 40 of them, I don't know. But obviously that takes a lot of time. So if you want to skip the line a little bit and get like a nice curated delivery of the information, well, I have a paid course for that. And I have a paid course in each pillar of my 3 pillars of success. And that's like a couple $100. So that's something like a do-it-yourself with a little bit of a hand. And then I also offer hourly coaching, for people who like don't want to pay someone like every month to just do it for them, and they can't afford that, obviously. You could like do a coaching call like once every couple of months and just get guidance on how to set your stuff up, like how to set up Quicken, like how to do your budget, help with the roadmap, and basically creating a plan. So that's like a less expensive way. And then, I do my part-time work that I mentioned beyond my website is me working as a fractional CFO for mostly businesses, but also some high income individuals where, they have the means and the income, but not the time to manage their finances. And they pay me a monthly retainer to just do it all for them. And essentially, I mean, I generally like pay for myself in that I work with their CPA to find, as many tax benefits as possible that might apply to them. I'm not a CPA, so I don't do their tax returns, but I'm like their CFO. So, I talk to their CPA or with them collectively and just like throw ideas out, spitball, whatever, but also just helping them save, helping them spend less where, easy wins are in their life that they just have not had time to deal with. I mean, just even going through and getting rid of old monthly charges people have recurring on their credit card that for services they don't even use anymore. It's like I could, save people a few $100 a month doing that. But insurance, all these different things. So I usually, with my retainer services, essentially try to pay for myself and then some. So I think when you work with someone that knows what they're doing, you very likely will save more than you spend in the long run. But, if you're obviously not a higher income person or a business owner where you have a budget for these kinds of things, obviously you got to take more time and do it yourself, and I tell you what, though, if you just put the amount of time you spend in a week on social media looking at meaningless stuff and comparing your life to other people's lives that are probably out there faking their lives anyway, you could be seriously advancing your personal financial situation.
Okay. So, Joe, as we are coming to the end of the show, I want to learn from you and I want to hear from you. One of the things that I do here is to share successful strategy, with my audience so that they can, adopt those strategies and help themselves. So you've given us 3 pillars of success, which is core. But if you look at life entirely, how do you measure success, or what is success to you?
I guess, I would boil it down to choices, because everybody's got their different version of what they like to spend their time doing and all that. But money and being prepared financially basically gives you choices, to be able to do whatever it is that makes you happy. I always say money can't buy happiness, but it can make the road there a lot less bumpy. So that's kind of what I think of it. Having the ability to change things up, do what you want, work 80 hours a week if you want. But if you eventually don't want to, not, and have it not be stressful for you, obviously in your first 20 years after schooling, you're going to be working a lot, I would accept that. But,
right.
Yeah,
that's right. So finally, how can my audience, how can they find you? I know payloader.com. How about your social media handle? I know you have a Facebook group, LinkedIn. Do you want to give us?
Yeah, I always tell people just to email me. I'm a bit old school. Like, I post stuff on social media, but I don't like social media. I think it's a bit waste of time, frankly. So email me, joe@playlouder.com. If there is one place I'm kind of most active is LinkedIn, I guess. But even there, people will have messaged me like a month ago, and then I'll be like, oh God, I don't know. So my website and emailing me is it.
Okay.
And playlouder.com is the site. And, for the course that I think is like the one that most people sign up for, that is like probably the most general finance, is the Financial Independence Roadmap. You can check that out. And everything I mentioned about preparing for your future is in there.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much, Joe. And
Absolutely.
We have come to the end of the show today. I hope you guys find this beneficial. There are tons of information that Joe has shared with us. To connect with him, please check his website, www.payloader.com.
Playlouder.com, exactly.
All right.
All right, Bullet. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of Winner's Ways podcast has come to a close. We hope you enjoy and learn something from today's show. We want you to win and excel in all areas of your life, and we regularly explore and share information with our listeners to empower them to win. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more tips and strategies to help you find the success that you've always dreamt of. And don't forget to rate and review so that we can continue to bring you more podcast episodes to empower you. We will love to have you again next week. Now, keep winning.